This
So again, we
conference
do
will
have a
now be
quorum.
recorded.
The meeting will be established at 1:38. And again, I want to welcome everybody to the AZERC meeting. Just a couple things that I want to cover: some virtual housekeeping and in-person housekeeping. Please, for those on the phone, please mute your microphones when not speaking. Please don't put us on hold because your music will take over our meeting. We've had that happen in the past. And if you are offering a motion for those commission members, if you're offering a motion, please state your name when you're either offering a motion or seconding a motion. And if you're opposing a motion, we also need you to state your name because, again, all this is for the record. In-person housekeeping, for those of you that are not familiar with this particular floor, we have restrooms which are just out by, you go past the elevators to the left, and there's the restrooms there. In the event of a fire alarm, we will all march out past the elevators. We will not get in the elevators, and we'll take the stairwell down, and we'll go over to the northwest corner of the across the building, which is where our staging area is. So we're going to hold just for a second and see, because I do need to hear folks on the phone going forward. Yeah. So can somebody just start talking who's online?
Good afternoon. This is Brent.
Yeah. Yeah. No, we still can't hear them. Yeah.
Keep talking, Brent.
Yeah, we can hear you, or at least I can hear you loud and clear on this end.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is Kathy with Deem. I hear you fine.
Yeah, you guys are very muted. So we've got our IT experts here helping us figure this out.
Okay, copy.
Okay. Yeah. We're in this room all the time. I'm with virtual meetings all the time, but I'm not quite sure why everybody who has spoken is very low. So it's not just one person.
Is that a volume control on the wall behind the cabinet? Or is that a light? There's a black dial.
Yes.
For future, we have that big conference room upstairs.
Oh, okay.
If you ever need it as a backstop.
Okay.
Brent, can you talk?
Very good. Good afternoon.
There you go. Nice eagle eye on the, was it the wall switch?
No, it's.
Oh, okay. Well, nice eagle eye on the wall switch anyways, worth a shot. Okay, so it looks like we are in business. We can hear you guys great. Let us know if there's any challenges as we go forward. So again, as I was saying, we have a quorum, so we will start the meeting. The first thing of action is approval of the AZERC meeting minutes from October 4th, 2022. They were, all the minutes were sent out to the commission prior to the meeting. If anybody had any, welcome Chief Burdick. If anybody had any changes, questions, comments, debate, rebuttal on the meeting notice, any concerns? Michelle?
So Laura, I did notice a typo on the minutes for when we came back into open session. I put 2:46. And it should have been 3:08, I believe.
Thank you, Michelle. We will make that change. Any of the commission members have any other changes they would like to see in the minutes from the last meeting? If not, can I have a motion to approve the AZERC meeting minutes from October 4th, 2022?
Paul Marsh approved.
Okay, do we have a second? Chief Burdick, second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Approval of the meeting minutes, and like we've done in past meetings, since we have a hybrid type meeting, I'm just going to ask for anybody opposed. It's easier than trying to figure out all who said agree. I'll just ask if anybody opposes, and then we'll go from there if anybody has any problems. Next on the agenda is the approval of the AZERC executive session meeting minutes, also from that October 4th, 2022. Those were also sent out prior to the meeting. Does anybody have any changes to those meetings? Okay, do I have a motion to approve the executive session meetings from October 4th, 2022?
Paul Marsh approved.
Okay, I second. Any opposed? Okay, approval of the executive session. Wanted to go over a couple changes in our AZERC commission status. Some of you might know this, some of you might not know, but Director Alan Clark with the Department of Emergency Military Affairs has given notice as of June, and he's stepping down from the commission. Kathy Hassett will remain as the representative, and Kathy's here with us today. Thank you, Kathy. Director John Halakowski with the Department of Transportation has retired. Congratulations to Director Halakowski. Director Jennifer Toth with ADOT is our new member of the commission, and I don't know if Ms. Toth is on. If Director Toth is on, I couldn't. Okay. Well, welcome, Director Toth. We'll definitely reach out to her. Assistant State Veterinarian Emergency Coordinator Suzette D. Persirio is no longer with the Department of Ag and has stepped down as an alternate. So that's a change to our commission makeup. Fire Chief Rob Bisco has retired. Again, congratulations to Chief Bisco. And Chief Mark Burdick with the Arizona Fire and Medical Authority is our new member of the commission. Again, welcome, Chief Burdick. Thank you. Mine Inspector Tom White has retired from the Office of the State Mine Inspector. Paul Marsh will remain as the representative. Again, thank you, Mr. Marsh. And late breaking news, Cassie Peters Jr. will be the primary voting member for the Department of Forestry and Fire Management. So again, a little bit of changes, good retirements, people moving on to other things. And so again, I just wanted to inform you guys of some of our commission changes. Next on the agenda, I wanted to run through a little bit. You guys have been hearing, or you've received, we do have some new conflict of interest annual renewals. So I kind of wanted, Michelle, did you send out the forms to everybody before the meeting?
No, I have not sent them out.
Okay, so you will be getting a little pile of forms. It is a little bit more in detail than it has been in the past. So as you all know, everybody on a board or commission for the state of Arizona has to file a conflict of interest forms. So there are several in this package that you guys will need to fill out and return back to Michelle Martinez. So if you have any questions on those, and again, a lot of this came out of an audit of the agency. So I remember when after the audit, we sent out the conflict of interest forms. That has since gone through further review. And now again, it's a little bit more in depth on our conflict of interest forms. So please bear with us. And then again, she'll be sending those out, and then you can just process them and return them back to Michelle. That would be greatly appreciated. Any questions on the conflict of interest annual renewal? Okay, I am going to turn it over to the next topic, to Mr. Ulick with the Department of Ag. You had added a topic for discussion.
Thank you, Ms. Laura. More of a question for myself regarding the ARS statute. It says directly, the director shall appoint a coordinator to work in consultation with the Arizona Emergency Response Commission in the development and implementation of the Hazardous Materials Emergency Management Program. Just kind of curious as to where we were with that. Has anyone been, nominated, or has there been any discussions of names? I have to be honest, I hear a lot from Archangel. I hear a lot from Ms. Michelle and yourself. Has there been any talk of appointing somebody like Ms. Michelle, for example? She's constantly sending out emails and keeping us updated, especially with our hectic schedules. I was just looking for some basic information on that.
Yeah, since AZERC came to us from DEMA, I really have designated the entire emergency response team as the coordinator. I double checked with the AG's office on whether I needed to pick a name or if I could have a team, and there really wasn't any disagreement of having a team. And I'll provide my rationale, and we're definitely happy to have a discussion. Everybody in the emergency response team has some responsibility for AZERC. David reviews plans. So I just felt that, instead of naming one person, and if, they decide to leave and now I have to name another piece, I just thought it was better to have the emergency response team listed as the coordinator for AZERC, because again, I thought it honored the whole team. But I'm happy to have a discussion about that to see, what if that's causing, conflict with LEPCs or what we can. I'm happy to. That's just how I've staffed. So the entire emergency response team is the coordinator and staffs all of AZERC, if that makes sense.
Oh, I follow you, ma'am. It just caught my eye. It'd be like you coming up and telling me about agriculture emergency management kind of stuff. So I was just curious as to where it was, if there was going to be a singular person nominated as a coordinator. I understand your explanations. I don't know if anyone else in the group would like to comment or chat on it. It was just for my personal edification.
Sure. No, and I appreciate the question. Does anybody want to talk through about how AZERC is staffed and whether, you guys feel that, we need to name one person as the AZERC coordinator? Anybody online? Does everybody understand kind of the rationale?
Hi, this is Kathy. I completely understand the rationale, and I think, yeah, it definitely makes sense. Just keeps things going.
Thank you, Kathy. Any other discussion about this particular topic? Again, I think the emergency response team does a great job as a team, staffing. I think you get emails probably from everybody in there. And if you haven't met our great emergency response team, we'll make sure that we do a round robin and make sure, because we do have some new people. Mr. Ehrlich, is that good? Is any other discussion about that?
No, ma'am, I have no rebuttals. Like I said, I was just curious. It caught my eye, my homework, prior to these meetings and things like that. So
I appreciate that. Thank you. So going forward, we'll continue with, again, having the emergency response team listed as the coordinator for AZERC, since everybody in that team contributes going forward. So next is reaffirming AZERC staff. So nice segue into, we think it's just important, since we've had some changes in the emergency response team, just to reaffirm who our emergency response team is and reaffirm who is the staff. DEQ staffs the AZERC, and so I'll turn it over to Archangel.
Yes, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Archangel Bergen. I'm the Emergency Response Unit Manager here at ADEQ. Basically, the reason for this reaffirmation is just a few years ago, the commission got together, delegated my team as the staff to handle all the administrative responsibilities, the behind the scenes stuff. But I know, as stated a few sections ago, that there's a lot of new members to the commission. And I have a lot of new members on my team, so I just want to do a quick introduction of my entire team and who basically runs the administrative stuff behind the scenes for AZERC. Again, my name is Archangel Berrigan. I'm the unit manager, and I'll just pass it down. Or actually, you guys have your own microphone, so I'll do that. We'll just do a quick introduction of everyone on the team.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Ricky Sechrist, and I am the newest emergency response specialist.
Hey, good afternoon, everybody. Dave Varela, nice to meet you, Director. Laura, thanks for having us. I've been here about 2 years. I handle the response plans, exercises, so a lot of folks that I've already met, and those online, I've met them before. So nice to meet you all. Thank you.
I feel like I should stand up too. Hi, everyone. My name is Camille Nels. I am one of the newer members of the Emergency Response Unit staff as well. I've been here coming up on a year, and I'm one of the administrative service officers on the team. So it's nice to meet you all.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Michelle Martinez. I think everybody knows who I am and has heard my name and seen it all over the place. So welcome to and thank you all for attending.
Thank you, team. And again, outside of staffing the AZERC, I mean, David, Ricky, and Archangel are the emergency responders from DEQ for our hazmat responders. I'm proud to say they are all three veterans. And Ricky, we just secured Ricky from the Civil National Guard, Air National Guard, who still serves today in the Air National Guard. So again, thank you all for your service and anybody else who worked in the service. So at this moment, we are going to go into the executive session. So I know, Michelle, they all need to sign off of this meeting and sign on to the commission members and sign on to the executive session. We're going to pop over into 3100 commission members. Yes, we're going to pop over into the conference room over there where we are going to talk about a few topics, and then we'll come back in, redo our attendance to make sure we continue to have a quorum and go from there.
We need a motion.
Sorry. So do I have a motion for the AZERC Commission to go into executive session?
Dwayne Eulich, Emergency Manager, Arizona Department of Agriculture.
Thank you. Do we have a second? Chief Burdick. Any opposed? Okay. Commission members on the phone, you should have all the instructions on how to join the executive session. I'll see you in just a minute. More than welcome. We're talking about
This conference will now be recorded.
So there's your notification that we're recording again. So I do need to do a very quick round robin of attendance again to make sure we still have a quorum. So I'll do this quickly. We still have Dima. I see. Oh, Chris. Okay.
Yeah, Chris is still on here. I don't know if Kathy made it back.
How about Homeland Security? Cheryl. I see Cheryl. And we have DPS, Captain Tom Neve.
Yes, I'm present.
Okay. Brent Kane.
President?
And we have Mr. Euling. Chris Watson. Or Joseph Pinkerman from Arizona Corp Commission. I don't think we. Oh, I'm sorry. For some reason I was thinking you were online, but I was sitting right next to you. I apologize. Bruce Rucker with ADOSH.
This is Bryce. I'm here.
Bryce, sorry.
That's okay.
And Department of Forestry and Fire Management, Bill Boyd or Cassie Peter Jr. Did we have any? I don't think they were here. We have Inspector Marsh. We have Chief Burdick, and we still have Teresa.
Yep, I'm on.
There you go. Thank you, Teresa. And I am still here. So we still have a quorum after executive session. So thank you, everybody, for coming back. Wanted to just give you a quick summary of the executive session and kind of what came out of that. So there has been some concern in that for SDSs or safety data sheets. So in our tier 2 system, hazardous materials meeting a certain threshold have to be reported under the tier 2 system, or extremely hazardous substances. But we recognize that facilities have a lot of other materials that are under the reporting requirements that a first responder, police officer, would want to know if they wanted to, if they needed to respond to that facility. So we talked through about legally, can we legally require it? And we can legally require it. Unfortunately, we don't have enforcement of that. But what we thought was the best way to go is to start the conversation with the why and why it's important, and ask voluntarily that they submit this information. It would be why it was important is we're redoing the tier 2 database system to go through my DEQ, and there would be a check. Sorry, that's a different topic. I'll get there in a minute. I'm crossing over my topics. But the idea is, can we have some outreach to our tier 2 facilities about the really reason why this would be important for them to provide either the SDSs to the LEPCs or to the fire departments that ask for that, even if it's a PDF list of the chemicals that they have that do not meet the tier 2 threshold. It would be good for the fire departments that are responding to that facility for first responder safety. So the commission members all agree that that was a good way to start and to start having the conversations. Yes, Jeff?
Yeah, what you should probably do is you should probably discuss what was discussed, but then ask the commission for a position and a vote or a motion in open session.
Okay. See, Karen's here. You should be here. You all can kick me when I do it wrong. Okay. Karen can kick me just as well as you. Yeah, so yes, Michelle.
So just so you know, it is an action item on item 13C.
Okay. So again, I think I'm going to jump agenda and we'll do it now, Michelle, since we're talking about it. So again, the general discussion was to have some public outreach, design, the campaign around the why it's important, why tier 2 is important, and why it's important for us to get these SDSs, or again, at least a PDF shot of other chemicals that they have on site. It was discussed that all this information is public record, when it's submitted to the agency. There was another discussion about fees for tier 2, in that this particular outreach, might be difficult to do a fee because, again, it's a voluntary type thing. But that's kind of what we generally talked about on the SDSs that do not meet the tier 2 threshold, and having an outreach campaign for that to all of our tier 2 filers. Any discussion on that? So do I have a motion to proceed with that plan of action regarding? And before I get to the motion, Kay, there was a question about, do we know what other states are doing? Is any other state doing this type of work?
I could speak to potentially 4 states, but as I see that Tim, I could probably speak about the Region 9 states to a certain extent, but as Tim has been the past president of NASTPO, which is the consortium of LEPCs, I think he'd be able to give you a more complete answer. So I will defer to him and then fill in any any blanks that remain regarding Region 9.
Hi all, my name is Tim Gablehouse, past president and board member of a group called NASPO, which represents CERCs and LEPCs nationwide. I am a member of the Colorado CERC today and have been for an excruciatingly long time, which only means that I've fooled multiple governors over the years. The short answer to your question is yes, many states do that. Many states recommend, in fact, that LEPCs be the enforcement arm after attempting gentle persuasion, moral persuasion. LEPCs have taken facilities to federal court to force responses to those requests. Those efforts have been uniformly and quickly successful in all cases. So basically, getting a federal court complaint across your desk usually gives people sort of a conversion experience, and they realize that it's a dumb idea to go fight things in federal court. So, and honestly, the farthest it's ever gotten on any case was a conference where the federal magistrate, asked the fire chief if he needed the information for planning a response. And the chief said yes, and the magistrate said, I've heard enough. So here's your choice. You can either give them the information or I'll hold you in contempt. So the information arrived a day later. But yeah, it is a common, absolutely common practice to encourage LEPCs to pursue the information they need for purposes of community preparedness. Many LEPCs have a policy which is essentially a member of law enforcement, fire department, whoever, fire inspector believes that there's information they need to do decent planning. Absolutely encourage them and support them in getting it. So.
Thank you.
And then I can add just a little bit onto that from the federal perspective. And in terms of Region 9 states, I don't know of a case where Nevada, California, or Hawaii has taken a case forward like that, but certainly the approach of explaining the why can get 99.99%. Compliance is one word, but participation is a more important word because this is participating in community response capability. Folks don't want to leave their first responders out on a limb. They're going to need them if they have an incident at the facility. So that gets you most of the way there. And that's such an important part of outreach. But there are a few outliers. And then, yes, there's taking the action through the LEPC, but you can also look to your federal partners who have independent enforcement authority and have helped out in that context in the past as well. So that might be a conversation, even if it's adding to the why letter, offering additional federal perspective on why this is important. You don't even necessarily need to go as far as enforcement to get the outcome that is needed for the first responders. But we would be happy to entertain that and partner with the state of Arizona in making sure that the first responders have the information that they need.
I'll move. So moved.
Thank you, Chief Burdick. Do we have a second?
This is Brent from ADOT. I'm not hearing the conversation.
Well, can you hear me now?
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, none of us on the phone heard it.
Oh, yeah. So I will, did you hear anything about
We heard Kim's information, but we didn't hear the motion or anything beyond or what the motion actually was.
Okay, so we will start over. That was my fault. I didn't have the mic on. But do we do we have a motion? Do we have somebody who's going to provide a motion that the Arizona Emergency Response Commission is going to pursue the letter to tier 2 filers and educate the LEPCs and the fire departments that they can ask for information on chemicals at the facility below the tier 2 threshold on a voluntary basis? That's the motion. Do I have?
Want to reaffirm the motion?
Yes, thank you. We have a second?
Paul Marsh, second.
Okay. Any opposed? Okay, so we will as the AZERC staff, we will create that that communication. We will share it with the commission members to make sure everybody's comfortable with it before we push send. Okay. The other 2 topics that we talked about in executive session was there's a concern that when we have our facility emergency response plans, or FERPs as we call them, we're not quite sure that LEPCs are reviewing them or that the fire departments are reviewing them. And it's really important for fire departments as well as LEPCs to review those. We review those at DEQ. So we had just a general conversation about, would it be possible to ask for them to acknowledge that they have reviewed them? And this came up because our redesign of the tier 2 system, if it passes through the commission, we would have a check on the MyDEQ that they had, LEPCs checked and that they had reviewed them and that fire departments had reviewed them. So that was the discussion about making sure in our MyDEQ revamp of tier 2 that we have that system. And again, it's important so everybody's on the same page. Again, the AZSERC reviews them and we think it's important. So do we have a motion to move forward with that type of check that the LEPCs and the fire departments have reviewed the facility emergency response plans?
Paul Marsh, motion.
Thank you, Ms. Marsh.
I'll second.
Okay, thank you, Chief Burdick. I should say, any discussion? If no discussion, any opposed? Okay, motion carries. So we will include that into our MyDEQ redesign of the tier 2, but we also will do some outreach as to the why on that. Last but not least, we had a discussion about facilities that have not reported, have not done a tier 2 report for like 2015 to 2021. We communicate, we have, obviously we have a list of facilities that haven't, but we talked about what's the viability, what's the need for going backwards. And some of the conversation was, tier 2 is about now and not then. So does it really make sense to put a lot of effort in getting facilities who haven't reported on tier 2 for previous years to actually report? There was a discussion that we have that list of people, of facilities that have not submitted certain reports. We can push the send button, and but again, the enforcement of that is challenging if they choose not to submit the tier 2 for those reports. DEQ is challenged in enforcing that. That was the discussion. So the motion on the table is should ADQ or should the AZSERC, should AZERC do the necessary outreach to the facilities, letting them know the years that they're missing and that we are requesting them to file their previous reports going forward. We have a motion I so move.
Yeah.
Can I do my own motion?
Yes.
Yes, thank you. I am a commission member. Thank you. Any discussion on that? Again, I think we'll talk about the why, when we do that outreach. Any discussion on that? Anyone opposed? Okay, the motion carries. I will say that I did take an action item out of that to have more conversations with EPA regarding EPRA and just the program as a whole, just to see what opportunities we have to bolster the program. So Kay, you and I will be having some further conversations.
Sure, that sounds great. Can I make one observation? Just maybe on part of the why. Part of the value of the tier 2 information is obviously for immediate response need, but it's used very well to cultivate training. And part of training and looking at emerging issues is trend analysis. So it is important to have a historical perspective on commodities in a community to see, is it going up, is it going down, how you see emerging growth or even reduction. It helps you sort of redirect some of your efforts. So that's another part of the why. Why is this historical data important? It does lend itself to those sorts of analyses in developing training for first responders.
Thank you, Kay. Okay, so we're going to move on the agenda. I am going to say we are running a little behind, so I would ask that because our meeting ends at 3:30, so we have 45 minutes, but we have a number of things to get through. So again, I would just ask everybody presenting that we be aware of that so we can end at 3:30. Be respectful of everybody's time. So I am going to turn it over to Mr. Gablehouse.
Oh, golly, I get to officially share? Holy cow. Magic. I can make it work. I'm being grateful. Thanks. You want to go ahead and bring it up? Well, there is that problem always. Wow, that's pretty. Just for the record, that's not my stationery, okay?
This counts against the balance of your time, Tim.
I know, I know. Yeah, I don't think there's anything I can do here. There you go. Start slideshow. There it's good. Okay. Again, Tim Gablehouse. Part of the perspective for this presentation, so that I can be fast, is that from an international point of view, the various UN groups that work in emergency preparedness have these same kinds of issues that we have as LEPCs and CERCs. There is, in fact, an international document or program called APPEL, with a handbook, which is essentially how you do LEPC stuff in the developing world, except they don't have an EPRA statute. They do it as much by moral persuasion as anything else. But the APPEL program, work done by OECD and others, really has a huge emphasis on how we're going to measure success in these programs. That is one of the tricky things we face, okay? Get up in the morning, why do we care? Why do we do it? Do we do it to get a report? No, certainly that's not the most useful thing in the world. We're doing it for other purposes. So I'm going to jump immediately into civil rights issues. And so, yes, I'll put my lawyer hat on, and I am one. We worry a great deal in an emergency preparedness and emergency planning scenario, whether you care to call it civil rights classically or environmental justice. It's essentially the same principle, just depends on what federal agency you're talking to. Fundamentally, the issue is this: equal access to adequate emergency planning is a civil right. Okay? That civil right was established and clearly established in the aftermath of Katrina. Okay? But I'm not talking about equivalent emergency response capacity. We're talking about equivalent, fair emergency planning, okay? Regardless of the population you're dealing with. One of the very key elements of that civil right is the right to participate, be aware of and participate in the emergency planning. So NASPO and other groups have been working on this stuff for a little while now, and have recognized that probably local emergency planning committees are the key place for those conversations. That is now memorialized in some work that has been done by the Pipeline Hazardous Materials Safety Administration and the International Association of Fire Chiefs. The reason that FMCSA does it is because they have money, and our friends at EPA don't. So they participate, but they can't fund it, this kind of workshop. So there was a creature called a Hazardous Materials Roundtable. It's been an annual event even during COVID. Just met here last month. Again, to confirm that, the point being, if we've got to create an opportunity for public participation, there's a whole lot of conversations that need to occur locally, and the general consensus across dozens of federal agencies, lots of local folks and others, is that we need to make LEPCs the focus of that. Now, as that turns out, that becomes really useful from a metrics point of view for a variety of reasons I'll get to in a second. Okay, so there are two primary concepts I've talked about. You get sued under the Civil Rights Act. If you're in law enforcement, you probably call these 1983 actions. It's Section 1983 of the Civil Rights Act. That litigation is usually linked with claims under the Americans with Disabilities Act, which codifies a lot of these same principles in terms of mobility issues and other issues. Local governments are normally the target, although states are on occasion. And quite frankly, nobody at NASPO or otherwise really interested in getting people sued. So the idea is coming up with some mechanism to measure success so that you have a defense to litigation and actually don't get sued in the first place. Okay. Lack of public involvement, lack of public awareness, lack of public communication covers about 85% of the cases that are out there. All right, CPG 101 version 3. If you haven't downloaded that and read it, you should. It is the document, FEMA document, that goes to great pains to talk about how important civil rights is, and you'll notice a little highlighted thing that says at a minimum. Okay, we're talking about all those normal aspects of emergency management are the minimum activities that need to be in plans and need to be communicated to the public. If you go to AZDEQ.gov, which is federal government's webpage on the Americans with Disabilities Act, you'll see a specific section dealing with emergency preparedness and emergency planning. Newsflash, you cannot do it. It's very aspirational material. Department of Justice takes complaints from people that say that local governments, remember, are violating their ADA rights, and they'll compare it as against those standards. They don't sue people who are trying. Okay, so if you in fact are engaging the interest, the stakeholders in those arenas, if you're engaging the stakeholders in the communities that are not English speaking or otherwise, you're very unlikely to get sued, even if perfection is not what you're obtaining. Even more fun, okay, there we go. FEMA issued this document last year, which is a real joyous thing to read. It's the Local Elected Officials Guide. And if you haven't printed that off and stuck it in front of your elected officials, you should, because it does a fairly brutal and direct job of saying, no, you're the ones who are liable for not doing adequate emergency planning. I mean, it's very specific, and it calls out the fact that every federal grant agreement you ever signed says you're going to comply with all this stuff. Okay, makes you subject to the Civil Rights Act, makes you subject to the ADA. And one of the things it calls out here, which I especially like, is the idea of establishing a core planning team. Now, emergency managers are engaged in all hazards planning. The move nationally now is to move LEPCs into all hazards planning to support emergency managers, so we're covering that range. And indeed, a lot of this document talks about stuff that LEPCs are supposed to be doing under EPGRA. So essentially, equitable, comprehensive preparedness, response, and recovery. That is not a cosmic principle by any stretch of the imagination. Okay, so here's how you get sued. You get trapped in defining success in 20/20 hindsight. Nobody ever had an emergency response that was perfect. Never happens. I don't care how good it was, there will always be second guessing. Okay? Whether it's communication, lack of awareness, warning, streets are closed too long, picket, okay? I mean, we're never perfect in 20/20 hindsight. So we have to find a way where we can get out of being evaluated in that regard, because that's not fun. We need to be focused not on response, but on preparedness and planning. Response will always be unpredictable, difficult to plan, messy. Okay? And that's always going to be the case. So we need to focus for success on preparedness and planning. We need to involve the public. We need to just be very aggressive in communicating and involving the public. And that depends on your community, and that's where you want to go. If we fail to address information available to the public, that's a real problem. The thing that is blowing up right now and biting people is in many states and communities, you have fence line monitoring around chemical facilities, refineries, and others. Sometimes this is done ad hoc by community groups. Okay? They pick it up, they set up an app, they send out warnings and alerts, and people call 911 to say, hey, we just got the alert. Should we evacuate? What should we do? And emergency managers are being caught totally flat-footed in terms of that kind of information. So need to embrace the horrors, a lot more information out there that we don't control, okay, that environmental agencies don't control. Okay? You've got in many states, you've got new statutes that deal with mandatory fence line monitoring as part of permit renewals. Don't think you guys have done that, but it's probably coming. It's common in California, Oregon, Washington, Colorado. It's really common on the East Coast. So, and this stuff is normally public-facing online information. And it's important to explain it. It's got to make something, it's got to make some sense. I talk to a lot of CERCs, I talk to a lot of elected officials, and there's commonly the perception that, well, if they're in regulatory compliance, that's good enough. That's not remotely the case. Chemical lists and thresholds don't equate to risk. Our obligation from a civil rights point of view is to plan for risk, whatever it is. So whether I don't regulate the facility, I don't land use controls, I didn't issue them a permit, the fact that they don't report on tier 2 or otherwise is essentially meaningless to the civil rights obligation. It's a place to start, it's useful, but that's why the idea of being able to have LEPCs get access to whatever they think is relevant for planning is important. A lot of communities say, we don't do land use planning, we don't control where people put up facilities or things like that. Too bad, that's not a safe harbor either. Okay? If it's a risk in your community, you have the obligation to plan for it. Period, hard stop. All right, so the message to emergency management and to LEPCs is you have to be part of the community, you have to engage. You cannot sit, hold a meeting and invite people. And say, you need to go knock on doors. You need to be going to church groups. You need to be going to business groups. You need to be going to places where people are and having these conversations. So you have to engage, you need to go to them. It's really important to tell people what we do, what first responders do, what emergency managers do, because guess what? They have no clue. And they have no idea how this stuff works, which means when they see it, oftentimes it will look dumb. It doesn't make sense to them. Okay, and so they're going to come up with who knows what kind of weird conclusions. But you need to sit down and really talk to people about how emergency management works, how emergency response works. It's a very useful conversation. We also need to be extremely honest about what we can't do. This is now in the international community as well, the big hot thing in going into communities and saying, we can't handle this risk, which means we need you, member of the public, to be a participant. You're creating expectations in terms of what the public role is. And remember, what we're trying to do here is we're trying to generate action, not just awareness. Okay, we want to tell people, here's what you need to do to take care of your family, of your neighbors. This is how you become part of the community. This is not like just, we used to yell at people about doing 72-hour kits, and it didn't work real well. For example, I never have my 72-hour kit because TSA doesn't like it. So can't bring it on an airplane. And normally when I do these kind of chats, I do them in hotels and places like that. And I always do a bet. I said, if you can go down to the front desk and ask them what their shelter-in-place plan is, and you get a cogent response, I'll buy you dinner. And I've done this for years now, and I have not bought dinner yet. Okay. So we need to create expectations. We make planning assumptions that we're going to tell people to evacuate, shelter in place, do whatever, and think maybe they have a clue what we're talking about, and they don't. They have no clue whatsoever. So we have to be really direct and honest. Now, I never met a fire chief who didn't think he could pretty much handle anything. Okay, true enough, but let's be real here. In the piney woods, whatever, I'm not putting apparatus up certain roads in the middle of a big fire. It's not happening. I'm not going to put people, my responders in harm's way. So we have to be real honest, or we let people get away with 911 being their emergency plan, which is highly inappropriate. All right, so the path forward. Okay, what are the realistic risks in the community? I don't mean meteor strikes and things like that, but what's real? Okay, what's real? What happens here? Fire, flood, whatever, okay? We need to look at the capabilities within the community, and that means everybody in the community. I don't care about responders. I want to know, do people have first aid kits? Do they have flashlights? Do they have a blanket? Do they have food? If I walk down Main Street and knock on the doors and I say, hey, do you have a first aid kit? And I get a blank stare, that's bad. So I need to create appropriate expectations based on what people's capabilities are. I'm going to create some awareness, that's useful. I'm going to try to fill my capability gaps. We've all got billions of them. Okay, I'm going to measure success on the degree to which I fill capability gaps as part of community preparedness. I can measure that. I can identify what they are. I can come up with plans and strategies to fill them. I can measure whether or not any of that works. Okay, so when I do this kind of work for the UN in the developing world, sub-Saharan Africa and places like that, there's a lot of baby steps here. We trained high school kids to do first aid, and you do an exercise to show they learned something. Okay, did I help fill the capability gap? Yeah. Was it an enormous change? Depends. Some places, yeah, because you're no longer dying because you broke your arm. So you get those kind of things, but you want to measure success, and you want to have the community vested in what you're trying to do to fill capability gaps. They need to be part of the process to prioritize how you're going to fill those gaps. So the message that a lot of states give to LEPCs now is, we want you to be successful. Here's what we think success means. Success means filling capability gaps in your community based on your priorities. I'm not going to tell you what your priorities are. We're going to have an ugly conversation about why this versus that, but it's a community choice, and it's not going to be the same everywhere, which frequently drives state leaders nuts. But I want success in your community, because guess what? If it's not successful in your community, that's when people turn around and they sue local government or the fire district or whomever, okay, for those reasons. You got to be persistent. You really got to have high expectations. Okay. All right. Now, NASPO runs an email list of all things EPCRA, et cetera, et cetera. Michelle's on it. I don't know if you're on it. So if you want to be on the list, drop me an email. I'd be happy to add you to the list. what I've just done here is give you this huge, big information dump. And I'll get plenty of questions later on that start with my friend has a question, which is cool. So please drop me a note. If you want to get out of the list, send me an email. I'll make sure you get at it. So questions? I tried to go really fast.
Got a very aggressive agenda. We probably overshot. Thank you, Mr. Gabelhaus. We really appreciate your attendance. In the light of time, I'm going to jump to certain topics on the agenda that need action by the commission. The other items are kind of more of an update, but for those that actually need some action, we are going to jump to number 14. So as we talked about, this is the Local Emergency Planning Committee, LEPC's voting membership application ratification. So Michelle's going to present a list of LEPC voting membership applications that have been received since October 4th of 2022. And we want to entertain really a motion for ratification of the LEPC voting memberships that have received interim approval. So if, for those that might be new on the commission, we have a policy approved by the commission that any new LEPC member, they have interim approval until they're fully ratified by the commission at a later time. That way the LEPCs can continue to operate and continue to do what they need to do. So here we are. So Michelle, I'll turn it over to you if we can.
Thank you, Laura. So we received 29 applications from LEPCs, from our 14 LEPCs. On the right-hand side, you can see that there were 7 from Yuma, 2 from Pima, 1 from Cochise, 3 from Mojave, 3 from Yavapai, 6 from Maricopa, 1 from Santa Cruz, 1 from Graham Greenlee, 1 from Pinal, 1 from Apache, and 3 from Coconino. So we had quite a bit of movement out there since we last met. Last time you ratified was October 4th of 2022. So we have given interim approval. We've processed everything. The information is on our shared website for you. If you do not have access, I'm still working on some of the new members to give you access. You'll have access to all those applications that have come in, so you can kind of see who these people are and where they're coming from. But that right now is what we're approving. So it's 29 applications that have received interim approval since October 4th.
So Michelle, did the commission members get this prior to the meeting? This list?
I'm not sure if I sent it. I sent so much information. It's hard to remember what y'all received. They already had access to a lot of it, but there's some new members who I had to add to our share file. So I'm still working on that, and I apologize for that.
That's okay. So, again, we want to be responsive to LEPCs to help them continue to do what they do. Does anybody have any questions or concerns about the applications that we've received so far from those 29 applications? That is a lot of movement in relatively a 6-month period.
If I could ask, has staff reviewed them?
Yes.
And
so,
are there any concerns from staff? I would move to approve the list. Can we do that?
So you're doing a motion? Okay.
Just to.
So we have a motion from Chief Burdick to ratify those applications. Do we have a second?
I understand the premise behind it. So Dwayne Eulig, Emergency Manager for Arizona Department of Agriculture. A second.
Great. Is there any discussion needed on this? Archangel?
Would you like me to just provide a little bit of clarification of what our process is for some of the new members here?
That would be great.
Okay. So as the AZERC staff, my entire team goes around the state and attends the LEPCs. So not only do we get to review the applications when they come into us, I am the final interim approval before bringing it to the commission, but usually one of us is in attendance of one of these LEPCs. We try and get at least 2 in there. So we actually get to interact with these new members as they're getting voted in. We get a little bit of a bio on them, a little background on where they come from or whatever, and kind of where they're fitted into the LEPC membership status. So on top of us just reviewing the applications, we actually attend these meetings and see these people in person or virtually as some of the counties host them. So that's kind of our process. We try and get out there, make face with them, and also, review their paperwork, make sure they're good. But usually we have, I think most of them are administrative or clerical errors on the applications, but we've never had any concerns with any of the members themselves.
Great. So we have a motion, we have a second, we had a little bit of discussion. Anybody opposed to ratifying the applications set forth before the commission today? Okay, motion passes and all those applications are ratified. That's great. We are going to move on to 14 the biennial training exercises discussion, David.
Thank you, Laura. Michelle will bring it up here shortly. So here we have our list of biennial exercises for each LEPC, the ones that have been conducted in the past year, and the ones that are due at the end of this year. These are biennial training exercises, so they're done every 2 years, and they coincide with their emergency response plans that are submitted. So right now there are 6 due by the end of this year for the counties, and we will work with them, and they will send us invitations to their exercises to ensure they are conducted. Nope, we're good.
David, we don't have any requests for extensions.
At this point, we do not have any requests for extensions.
Okay, and LEPCs are not out of compliance? We don't have any LEPCs out of compliance?
We have one out of compliance, which is Pinal, which they haven't had an exercise in some foreseeable time. We are working with them, but this also ties into the next slide.
Okay.
So this next one here is going to be, and this is where we'll need some action, our emergency response plans that have been submitted since the last AZERC meeting. The commission was only able to ratify 3 plans that met all the requirements at the last meeting. Since then, I've received 9 more that met all the requirements. I worked with each LEPC and the representatives to ensure they were in compliance and met all the requirements for statute. So 9 have received interim approval, which means they have met all the requirements. Before we go to ratify those 9, we do have 2 outstanding, which I've highlighted here. Pima County LEPC is non-compliant due to a pending update. They have not submitted the updated plan, and we have not received a timeline for a submitted plan. There were some issues with some identifying a community emergency coordinator, and we have not heard back from them on how they have decided to move forward with that, or have we received a request for extension. The next one is Pinal County, and this is the one that has been out of compliance for their exercise for quite some time. Their emergency response plan did not meet in all the requirements. I worked with them back and forth, helping them to meet those requirements. They have decided to do a complete rewrite of their emergency response plan. I had advised them to request an extension from the commission. We have yet to receive that extension. They are also supposed to be working with Michelle on using grant funding to complete these tasks. She has yet to receive any formal email or request on that as far as that's concerned. So Pima and Pinal currently do not have an approved emergency response plan for the last year.
So I would like to make a motion to have a letter drafted for my signature as executive director. What that will do, I'm not quite sure. Outlining in a little bit more formal fashion how the county is out of compliance and requesting an expected due date. So that's a motion that I put on the table. Any discussion, any other ideas on how we can help them? We want to help them, and I know they're looking for some grant money, but What concerns me is that we don't have even the request for an extension. We just don't have that type of communication. So that's concerning to me. I want to help them as much as possible be successful, but I think they need to understand they don't have an approved emergency response plan for their county.
Or I'm sorry, can the letter include that? Would you include the information letter that they're out of compliance, but that they haven't even asked for an extension? Okay.
I think we just lay it out. I know, David, you've done it. Michelle, I'm sure you've had conversations. This would be a little bit more formal, on the record type communication.
Are you all aware of outside influences that could be hindering progress with those counties?
So I do know that they had quite a bit of turnover at Pinal County. And they're kind of restructuring. So I think that's kind of a hindrance at this point. I did get an email from Courtney Cox, who's the EM, who said that they were going to extend the HMEP. I gave them till June 30th to complete use the HMEP funds, but all she said is we're going to need until July, but she didn't ask for an extension regarding the emergency response plan. So we haven't gotten an official notification for an extension on that. So my question is, does that answer your question?
Well, I don't know if they're online or not. And, me being the ag folk for the state, it's not my place, but yes, I am aware that they are being plagued with a massive employee turnover situation there. So that's why I brought it up. But who am I to speak on their behalf?
Also, Laura, did you want this letter to be for both Pima and Pinal?
Yes.
Thank you.
If it's approved, if we have a motion. Well, you have a motion. Are there any other ideas? Again, we're here to assist, but we also need them to. I get that they're having some challenges, but there needs to be a little better communication on where they stand and how they're going to get back into compliance. So if there's no other ideas, that's the motion that's on the table. Do we have a second?
I'll second. That's Bryce.
Bryce? Thank you.
Yeah, Bryce.
Any opposed? I think, sorry, I'm going back to the discussion point. The last time we talked about having a letter from AZERC sent out, we talked about sending it to the emergency manager first to see what type of response we get from the emergency manager. And then if we don't have a response from the emergency manager, you can actually escalate it to the city council. So if everybody's okay, that's the path we'll take, like we've talked about in previous. So going back, any opposed? Okay, thank you. So we are rapidly running out of time, and I apologize. We had a very aggressive agenda. I do want to do number 17, an action item review, really quick because I want to get to call to the public. Yes.
Lord, I don't mean to slow this down. We do need to ratify the 9 emergency response plans that received interim approval. So that just needs a motion.
Hallmark's motion.
Okay, I second it. Any discussion on ratifying those 9 counties with their emergency response plans? Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. Thank you, David, for keeping me square. Actually, I am going to go to call to the public because I want to make sure that we have time. Is there anybody from the public that would like to address the Emergency Response Commission? I saw some public on there, but okay, if there is no call to public, can we do a quick action item review, Michelle?
Hey, this is Bill Jones. I'm not a member of the CERC, and I'm on. And can I make a quick comment, a plug as a member of the public?
Absolutely, Bill.
Thank you. Hey, I just wanted to say, and we'll be talking about this at LPC, as many of you guys can come July 19th and 20th, we'll have our regional response team meeting in Arizona, hosted at ADQ. It's 15 federal agencies. Got a lot of your state agencies coming. The first day from 1 to 4 will be a rail workshop with UP, BNSF, Federal Railway Administration, some case studies. I think that'll be really awesome, a really great opportunity. And the next day will be our full RT meeting. We're having a tribal panel. We'll have a state agency panel that Archangel's helping us with some of the state agencies. We'll have some of the feds talking. It's a great opportunity to network, see what resources are out there and how we can work together on response and kind of take advantage of kind of some of those resources that are out there. Again, that's the 19th and 20th of July. I've got the info. I know Michelle and Archangel have the info. It'll be hosted right there where you guys are. And thank you for that. And we hope to get a good turnout because we haven't met there in a while. And we want to show the Coast Guard and other partners that there's a lot of interest and it makes sense to meet regularly in Arizona. So appreciate it. Thanks.
Great. Thanks, Bill. Appreciate that. Are there any, so Jeff, you tell me, the things that we did not cover on the agenda today are updates about the HMP grant and the ERF. What I would like to do is send that out to the commission in an email with those updates, because I know the team put some effort into doing that. And I think it's important for you guys. So if that's acceptable, we will send an email out to all the commission members and letting them know the updates on the topics that we did not discuss today. And then are there future agenda topics, things that you guys are facing, things that you would like for us to put on to the next AZSERC meeting, which we're proposing to be October 24th, coming up in the next 6 months? Anything that you guys, the team does a great job in building the agenda. So what I would say is if things are coming up in your world that you would like the commission to talk through, definitely let the ERU team know and we can add it to a future agenda. Anybody on the line that has any future topics?
Laura, this is Teresa at ADHS. I wonder if it might be of benefit to get a summary of kind of a short version of the AAR of the chemical exposure that happened on I-10 that caused quite I mean, it was new to most people, but I think between the stay in place orders, the evacuation orders, and some of the cleanup, I think it would be helpful to get a brief summary of those actions.
Absolutely, Teresa. We can, the ERU team will work with DPS and ADOT as well, because they were also on scene to get that summary of that action report.
Thanks.
Thank you very much for that.
Laura, Tom Neve, DPS, I can send that over to you if you want to forward it out to all the commission members.
Okay, great. Thank you.
No problem.
Any other things from the commission members that you would like to see on the next agenda? So again, we will send you out some of the updates from the grants and other things that we were not able to cover today. I apologize for running long. We were doing so well in past meetings on meeting the time frame, but we will definitely get that information out to you. So again, I truly appreciate everybody's time and attention on the CERC. There are opportunities for the CERC members to actually attend LEPC meetings. We're happy to share what those LEPC meetings are. I am actually making time on my calendar to attend LEPC meetings where possible. So again, it's a great opportunity. I think the LEPCs would be appreciative of having an AZSERC member, attend their LEPC. So again, we're happy to share that information for you guys to be able to go or not go. Again, it's just an idea. But I really do appreciate your time and attention on this and participating and helping us move emergency response for the state of Arizona forward. Michelle.
I just want to say something really quick, Laura. So we have, you should be getting emails from me regarding invitations to the LEPC meetings. I just want to thank every single CERC member that takes the time to attend because it means so much to the LEPCs when they see our CERC members there. And so I just want to thank you for taking that time. It's virtual. We've had some CERC members that have gone in public or gone in person, and they're seeing more of a united front from the CERC for the LEPCs and for the fire department. So I just want to give you all kudos for that.
Great job. Thank you. That will wrap up our meeting. Can I have a motion to adjourn the Emergency Response Commission meeting?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any opposed? Okay. Thank you, everybody. Have a good rest of the day.